In 1999, Activision and Tony Hawk took the world by storm with the PlayStation 1 debut of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. No one really knew at the time just how much of a phenomenon the series would become. Not even Activision themselves could have anticipated the cultural impact that this game would have in the years to come. With the recent announcement of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 remakes coming to the Switch in July, I thought I would take a look at the series and dive into some facts about this mammoth franchise that you may not know about. So, lace up your Vans, grab your backpack, and put on some Goldfinger as we take a look at 10 kick-flipping facts about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. While I've got your attention, March is myeloma month, and my dad is in the process of giving this rare form of cancer hell, and I just wanted to do my part to help him raise awareness of this insidious disease during March. Myeloma is also known as multiple myeloma, and it's a type of bone marrow cancer arising from plasma cells, which are normally found in the bone marrow. Currently, there is no cure for myeloma, but with treatment, it can be controlled for many years. With the emergence of many new and more targeted treatments, survival rates have increased dramatically. And if you want to know more, search Myeloma Australia and keep up the fight, Dad. 10. The game exceeded expectations. It's kind of an obvious one. But the first Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game, released in 1999, revolutionized sports games with its combination of skateboard and arcade-style gameplay, and it set a new standard for extreme sports games, said to actually influence further development on games like SSX Tricky. It also managed to shift over 2 million copies, cementing it as a mega franchise and boosting not only Tony Hawk into superstardom, but also other skaters who appeared in the franchise like Rodney Mullen, Chad Muska, and Bam Margera. Tony Hawk turned down a $500k paycheck. Before the first game was released, Tony Hawk was living in a car and had a few sponsorships and endorsements to help keep him afloat. Activision came along and offered Tony Hawk a one-time $500,000 paycheck for his name and rights to likeness. He turned down the deal despite it being almost an insane amount of money to him at the time. And Activision and Hawk ended up signing a new deal that proved to be far more profitable for Tony Hawk. In a podcast with the Nine Club, Hawk reflected on how the franchise changed his life, sharing a story about the Activision executive taking him out to lunch and telling him that the game was far more successful than projected, and handed him a $4 million bonus check. Tony Hawk also said, "I don't want to downplay that. This video game changed my life." Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on Dreamcast is often revered in the best in the series. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was actually one of the first games to be released on Sega's Dreamcast, and it was widely praised for its enhanced graphics and smoother gameplay compared to its PlayStation counterpart. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was the definitive version of the game due to its combination of excellent graphics, smooth controls, online play, and additional content, as well as a showcase of what the Dreamcast could achieve, and was a part of what made the system such a beloved cult classic in gaming history. The Nintendo 64 version was the opposite. The N64 port of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater had a significant number of compromises and cuts in order to deal with the limited memory of the system. Songs were limited, and those that made the cut looped after the first chorus. Skater models and animations were shared, taking out some of their individuality, and bonus skaters were omitted. Despite these limitations, the N64 version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater remains one of the most fondly remembered entries in the series, because it still managed to provide that core gameplay that fans love, and captured the excitement of skateboarding, even on a console that wasn't necessarily optimized for such a fast-paced action game. Bam Margera and Johnny Knoxville influenced the series. In Tony Hawk's Underground 2, Ben Margera and Johnny Knoxville played pivotal roles as the main characters in the game's storyline, and their inclusion added an extra layer of excitement for fans of the Jackass TV shows and films. Their appearance brought a mix of humour, chaos, outrageous antics, and gameplay mechanics that fit perfectly with the game's over-the-top style. There was a world destruction tour, riding in shopping trolleys, and other shenanigans that made Tony Hawk's Underground 2 so memorable. Jack Black and other celebrities make an appearance in the series. The Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games are littered with some out there characters and cameos ranging from fictitious skaters like Spider-Man and Officer Dick, to whom Jack Black lent his likeness and voice in the remake, to real-life rock stars like Billy Idol, Gene Simmons, and Lemmy Kilmister. The first game was in development for less than a year. At the time of the original game's release, Neversoft was a relatively small company, with fewer than 30 employees working on the game. Tony Hawk consulted on the game to refine the handling and the tricks mechanics, and Neversoft managed to complete the game in under a year, which was a quick turnaround for such a detailed and innovative title. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 was the first PS2 game to feature online multiplayer. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 was a groundbreaking release in the Tony Hawk series, as it became the first game in the franchise to feature online multiplayer for PlayStation 2. This edition allowed players to compete against each other in various game modes, including trick competitions and score challenges, extending the game's replayability and appeal. The introduction of online play helped set a new standard for sports games and showcased the potential of the PlayStation 2's online capabilities. It marked a significant milestone in the evolution of multiplayer gaming on consoles. It was also one of the first franchises to use licensed music. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was one of the first games to integrate licensed music directly into its gameplay, which became a defining feature of the series. By featuring popular tracks from punk, rock, and alternative bands like Bad Religion and Goldfinger, the game helped pave the way for a new standard of video game soundtracks. The music not only enhanced the gaming experience, but also exposed players to new artists and genres, creating a lasting impact on how games use licensed songs. This approach would later become common in so many other games, particularly in sports and action titles, and perhaps taken to the next level by the Need for Speed Underground series. And finally, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released on almost every console. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released on nearly every major console during its time, making it accessible to a wide range of players. From the PlayStation, N64 and Dreamcast, and the Xbox, and even handheld devices like the Game Boy Advance, the game reached such a diverse audience and across various platforms. Its widespread release helped expand the game's popularity, ensuring that it became a staple in the gaming community. This cross-platform availability contributed to the franchise's lasting success and broad appeal. And there you have it. Did you know all these facts? I actually remember owning Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on the N64, and I didn't even hear the full version of Goldfinger's Superman until Spotify was released when I was an adult. What's your favorite game in the series, or even just a favorite memory? Share it with me, and I'll see you in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 in July. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks so much for watching my video. If you liked it, the best way you can support What's It Like is by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with your friends. For more reviews, click on the thumbnails to the right, and for everything Nintendo, check out what'sitlike.com.au.